Ladies and gentlemen, what is up? Welcome to the first episode ever of the Mayhem Show with Mark May, your guest co-host. Tonight is Mr. Lewis Perry. Let's bring him on. Lewis, how you doing tonight, buddy?
What's going on, brother? I'm happy to be here. I'm honored to be part of the show with you. Thank you very much for having me. The maiden voyage here tonight. Whoa, look at that.
That is what this is tonight, my friend. Welcome. I am so excited to have you on. You are awesome. Thanks for even saying yes to being on the show. I appreciate it so much, man. You have no idea. This is Silent Mayhem Productions' first live show on YouTube ever as well. Thank you. Mr. Lewis here has been a performer on YouTube for quite a while and on Facebook Live with the Angry Geek Show. Let's give it a huge shout out to those guys. Those guys are fantastic.
Guy and girl. Guy and girl. Yes, yeah, God. It's me and my sister from another Mr. the one and only that Wonder Woman, Jamie Dolan. She's she's my kid sister, man. I mean, you can't say guys. It's me and Jamie. We were rocking the house all the time for alternate reality entertainment. Taking all their cons by storm and just doing the thing. You know, we can't wait to get back to the convention scene. Connie and Steve treat us very well, and we love them with all our hearts, and we just can't wait to get out there rocking and rolling and doing our things. Jamie with the cosplay, then getting on stage with the celebs and having fun with the artists. And we just want to rock and roll, brother.
That's right, guys. This is the first appearance of the Mark May G.I. Joe and his dog Yoda on the broadcast. They're going to be there for a little while. Speaking of alternate reality, those guys rock as well. You can see me at Colorado Springs Comic-Con. I hope to see you there as well because those guys are awesome. I am not going to spend too much time talking about me anymore tonight, guys, because the God's honest truth is we have one of the biggest legends ever in the industry that decided to come on the first show for the Mayhem Show with Mark May. And without further ado, we are going to bring this man on because he is awesome. This is going to be his cover reveal night, which is going to be amazing. Hey, what's going on, Mr. Joe? How you doing today, brother?
Hello. I'm not sure I have the energy for this, but I'll do my best. Let me ask you, in future episodes, if you have women guests, will you force them to wear a beard just to fit in with the whole milieu?
I mean, we all kind of got beards here, don't we?
That's what I'm saying. It's like
if they want to, they totally could.
So is this live and I can't curse?
No, you can curse all you want, brother. Okay. This is live, and I don't care.
I'm glad you said this is the maiden show, because Jim Shooter once turned to me and said, if you take all the comic book fans and lay them end to end, it'd probably be the first time for most of them.
So Joe, you're popping that cherry.
Excuse me one second.
This is the first show that we're doing, and it's you. I am honored, my friend. Seriously.
Thanks.
And you've met Lewis before, is that correct?
Yes, Joe. I interviewed Joe at Comic-Con in Foxwoods 2018, I believe. Joe and I shared a microphone. I believe it was 2018, Joe. It was a very short interview you and I did right on the convention floor. Must have been very memorable.
Okay. I see all of us don't have the best taste in fashion, but what are you gonna do?
Well, hey man, I mean, I'm a t-shirt kind of guy. I mean, we don't all have the sweet Infinity Gauntlet shirt like you do, my friend. That thing is awesome.
Yeah, and I of course have
I am about an hour past my bedtime, so
that's true. It is. It's way past his bedtime.
Really?
I'm on the East Coast. I am on the East Coast.
What do you wake up 5 a.m.?
4.
Why?
I wake up 4.
What do you do?
I am the general manager of Toolmax Designing and Tooling, an family-owned aerospace company right here in New England. And I sit behind a desk. Mark!
What? I'm sorry, man. All right, I'm turning it down.
I'm trying to do a shameless plug here from my boss and trying to get a raise. And
it's the first show. We're working it out.
I'm working it out. That's right. Thanks, Joe.
That's why he has me on here. Yeah,
get him a raise.
You. I know. I'm trying to get a raise, Mark. What the hell?
Okay. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
I'm the general manager of a machine shop, and so basically, I sit at a desk and I say, "You get to work. You get to work. You come over here so I can write you up for not being safe and stuff like that." So that's what I do.
I've gone to art school for 30 years just so I wouldn't have somebody like you in my life.
Well, guess what, Joe? I am here.
There you are.
So
twice.
Joe, let me tell you how this is going to work tonight. We aren't going to ask you the same old questions you've probably been asked your entire life. Okay? That's not how this is going to roll.
A quart a day. No. Sometimes if I'm lucky. Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's how we're going to start this, huh? All right. So, Joe, let me just first off and say, like, there's pretty much every book in the industry you've worked on, okay? It's more or less what book haven't you worked on that would be a book that you would love to do?
Well, when Starman was being written by James Robinson, I thought that was wonderful. And they would have like backup stories every 3 issues or something like that. And I always wanted to do them. But more often than not, it's not a book. It's more of an artist I want to work with. Like Ivan Reis is a really wonderful artist on Superman who I haven't worked with. I've only done commissions with Lenny Liu. So, I mean, unless like, Lenny Liu were doing the Transformers, then I would have to seriously think about that because I hate that shit. So not the characters, not the storyline.
You're talking about
little bits and pieces
the little details
Lewis would do in his shop if he could.
So go ahead, Lewis. Go ahead.
No. Go. This is your go. Go.
Lewis, go ahead, brother. I want to hear what you got to say.
I completely forgot. Go right ahead.
Okay.
All right. So, Joe, when you're on the road, we've talked about food before because, you're trying to keep me alive, which is awesome. I really appreciate that. Not too many people look out for me. I appreciate that. What's your favorite food place on the road when you're at shows? Like, what do you do for, like, show food? Like, us artists, we always, like, we stay in hotels. Like, we either get fast food or we go out with our friends and get stuff to eat. And we find places on the road that tend to be our favorite food places. Like, I'll go to a city just to eat the food. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but there are times where I'll go to a convention just because I know what food places are going to be there. What's your favorite?
Well, like you'll go to St. Louis for the ribs, or you'll go to Chicago for the pizza or something like that.
Kansas City, Planet Comic-Con. They got the best barbecue place in the world down there.
Right. Well, I tend to try the food that is most associated with the place because when I'm in Chicago, I definitely have to get Giordano's, triple pizza, which is, of course, a betrayal of my New York City heritage. But, sometimes you like a little strange.
I'm a huge fan of that Giordano's.
I'm also allergic to a million things. So I don't know that if I'm in Kansas City, I'll get the sushi. Exactly. But
are you allergic to sushi?
What?
You're allergic to sushi?
No, but I'm saying I think probably the freshest fish doesn't wind up in Kansas City or Kansas. I tend to stick more towards the coasts for those things.
That's for sure. When I was in Rhode Island, the seafood there, I had tried it for the first time. I remember we were at Uno's Pizzeria and somehow, some way I got a piece of fish and it turned out to be the best food I had ever had in my entire life because I've never had seafood near the sea because I live in Colorado.
Right.
And it's just a night and day difference. So what's your favorite? What's
Mark,
your favorite place?
You think we're losing the audience with this conversation?
No, we never had an audience to begin with, Joe. This
Did you
is the
want to
first
talk
show.
about comic books at all?
Well, we do have a question from Russell Cassidy. Russell Cassidy says, Joe, do you have a favorite book that you worked on, like your holy shit moment?
Well, I mean, I think when I worked on the Justice League with McGuire and DeMatteis and Giffen, and formerly known as the Justice League, and I can't believe it's not the Justice League, those books were beautifully drawn because Kevin's a wonderful draftsman, and they were very funny. And if you've never read them, I would, in the olden days before we had electricity, I would go into PC and pick up the pages, and they had lettering on them, which they do not have any longer. It's all computer later. And I would read these pages on the way home in the subway, and I would laugh out loud because this stuff was wonderfully funny. And I mean, I think they changed everything around, and they made Morgan Edge somebody he wasn't previously. But yeah, I'm very proud of that stuff. I was also on Superman for 7 years, and there was some good stuff there. I mean, people hate the Electric Superman, which is where, probably I got this cover in the mail from DC, and it was a single figure standing there against black, and I inked it like an hour. And then I felt a little guilty, so I gave it another 15 minutes, and then I mailed it back. And what I didn't realize, it was the new Electric Superman, and it would be the single most publicized piece of artwork I'll ever do in my life, because it was in every magazine and newspaper in the world. But also everybody hates him. They like the traditional guy. So there's that association with me. But yeah, I was proud of that. So I also, I think the Wolverine miniseries with Miller, it still holds up. It's still got legs, but people read it and they still think it's good stuff. And even the Captain America I did with Byrne, I reread that a couple of years ago, and it's still good stuff. And believe me, I'm just as more so disappointed that all of you that it didn't continue, because it had such potential, and they could have, done 10 years with it with Byrne as he did on the X-Men.
So we all know where have you been. We all know. Really? Yeah. I mean, you're Joe. Joe, come on. You're a legend. You're a legend in the industry. We all love your work. We all know your past, but what I want to know is what's in store. What's in the future? Where are you gonna go? That's what I want to know. I want to know what's next. I mean, what
as soon as this is done, I'm gonna go finish painting this thing.
Oh my god!
Oh my god, that's beautiful. Mark, why don't you bring that to the full screen so the audience can see that? You want to hit that button to bring it all up?
I don't know.
Absolutely.
It's still being worked on, God knows. But can you see it?
There you go. No, the other button.
This one?
No, the other button.
That one?
The other button.
That one?
The other left.
The other button.
This one?
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, that's the first time, guys.
It's something I'm painting for MB Artists for, here's a close-up of Obi-Wan.
Oh my god.
And I'm working for these people called MB Artists, which produce prints and covers, new covers, alternate covers. I'm doing some of the Secret Wars first series alternate covers, prints, commissions, whatever. Also, there's something called Power Comics, I think they're called, that are putting together some books with Alan Weiss and Kerry Gamble and Val Mayrick and me, and we're going to be doing that. There's also a project on Facebook by Nostalgia Press called the Liberty Brigade. And it's a 100-page graphic novel with Ron Frenz, Barry Kitson, George Perez, Alan Weiss, Alan Davis, all these people. And it's my inking for a lot of it. And it's like the way comic books used to look and used to read. And it was a Kickstarter project. And we wanted to get a certain amount of money in 30 days. We got it all, I think, the first day.
Wow.
And then 30 days later, we had double the money, because I think a lot of people want to see comic books that look like the way they used to look, which is not to say comic books today don't look fine. But, it's like a TV show. You want an old-fashioned TV show, you want a modern show, you want to watch a flat cartoon, you want to watch a 3D cartoon. So it gave it some variety, plus I do lots of commissions. and recreations and stuff. And I wanted to bring up something, if that's okay with you guys.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Bleeding Cool just put out an article talking about what a horrible human being I am for swiping other artists' work.
What?
Yeah. And they didn't bother to call me, write me, and ask me a quote or an opinion or anything else. And I just want to state that sometimes I have clients who say, could you copy this image for me because it's unavailable or it's too expensive and I'd like a recreation of it. So I'll do that. Sometimes the clients will say, well, I want kind of a George Perez or Jack Kirby look. I went, well, how do you do that? You copy a George Perez or a Jack Kirby, you know. Or somebody says, can you do Conan? And I go, well, you know, there's really nobody better than John Buscema doing Conan in my estimation. So I'm going to go look at John Buscema now, and I'm going to copy a Conan figure from him. And my response is, can you do it? All right.
Exactly.
And on top of that, I just did a Thor commission, and it says after Ron Friends, after Jack Kirby, because Ron copied it from Kirby, and I copied it from him. And you know, we're just saying we love this guy's stuff. We want to use it for the basis for one of ours. And matter of fact, I was at a comic book convention once, and I had a print of Superman that was based on a Garcia Lopez drawing. And Jose is the greatest guy, and he's a great, he's just as good an artist as he is a great guy, and vice versa.
Yep.
And I turned to him, and he looked at the print, and I went, I'm sorry. He went, it's okay. I swiped it from Adams.
Check this out, Joe. So let me back you up for just a second with what you're talking about. Guys, if you don't know, Joe is, and this is how I know his work the best, is one of the most accomplished painters that I've actually ever seen. This is the original artwork for Joe's Hellbringers card in set 3. And let me just show you this real quick. Like, it's absolutely incredible, man. Like, I mean, it doesn't get any better. You're gonna see his cover tonight as we unveil it. Bullshit articles like that. I mean, this is my take on it, guys. So when somebody comes out and they say something like that, not knowing shit behind why people do stuff like this, or not knowing that the customer does ask us to draw exact likenesses of people, or they have, you know, an artist that they want us to see the style off of, and they want us to do a commission from it. That's what you do. You do what they want. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, they're paying us to do something, and we're going to do it. If it's a homage piece, we'll put after the artist. If you have a problem with it, go to hell, period.
Well, sometimes I mean, I have large files of reference, and if somebody says, draw Gwenem, who I never even heard of, and I found this lovely drawing, it's really wonderful painting of Gwenem, I copied it, and I wrote after ? Because I didn't know who did it.
Right. But
I did say after somebody, and if somebody's like photoshopping off my credit, for instance, you know, and there's this one client who, after the article, he said, oh, you used the statue of Dr. Doom. I don't want the commission. It's like, what's wrong with that? Unless I get a guy who comes in here dressed like Dr. Doom, I got to look at something for something. And somebody as great as Alex Ross, he has action figures he draws from, you know. And there are other artists who do something called a marquette, which is they'll sculpt their own little figure and then they'll photograph it and they'll draw it from it. It says, well, instead of me having to sculpt my own figure, I'll go use somebody else's photograph of a statue. And still, I think it gets down to, can you do it? You know, it's not like I took the statue and pressed it up against a piece of paper.
Right.
I looked at the statue, I copied the statue, I made up the colors, I edited, you know, and somehow I'm just a plagiarist now. And as I said, it would have been nice if Bleeding Cool had written me and said, you got any comment on this thing? And maybe I might have given a little bit of an explanation.
You know what? I mean, Joe, don't worry about it. I see people getting, you know, those all the time, those little write-ups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Dude, sometimes people just say stuff to keep, you know, websites going.
Right, like there's nothing more important in the world to write about in the world.
I mean, come on, man. Have you seen what this guy has actually accomplished in his entire career? And you're going to say something like that? It's unbelievable, guys. Just saying.
Excuse me. Many of the conventions, I mean, all the conventions I go to, you walk down Artist Alley, and you go up to any artist, whether it be an upcoming, whether it be a legend, they're all taking reference photos. They're all searching Google for reference. If you go up to them and you say, "Hey, I want a commission. I want you to draw Defenders cover 50. Can you recreate this for me?" You're going to look up that reference. You're going to say, "Okay, I'm going to do this. I could do this." Or I want the famous Wonder Woman Perez. Can you do that for me? Right. They're going to look at the reference, whether it be a statue, whether it be the cover. And then usually in my experience, and Joe, please correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to look at your reference point and show it to your customer and say, okay, so you want it something like this. And the customer is going to approve that. Say, yeah, that's what I want. Can you please do that for me? So for the customer to look at it, oh, well, you copy that. I don't want it. That's kind of ballsy. It's, I mean, you're going to approve that.
Right. And believe me, if anybody asks me for a Thanos sketch, I'm looking at Jim Starlin. Okay.
Oh,
I mean, what sense is there to not look at Jim Starlin? And I'll make whatever little changes I make. And if it's a color piece, I'll paint it, but I'll start with a Jim Starlin drawing. So it's just, it's as I said, I can't think of one artist who hasn't swiped from somebody else, either like John Buscema swiped from Frank Frazetta. John Buscema drew like a god, but he just wanted to experience a Frank Frazetta figure. And Frank Frazetta, who drew like a god, swiped from Hal Foster and Norman Lindsay because he loved them and he wanted to get into it. In my art school days, I used to like illustrators like Bernie Fuchs, and I would do an entire illustration as close as I could in his style, just to understand it. And then I learned something from it, So, and the fact is, if my Wolverine #1 miniseries cover was in a show in Seattle Museum, and was in shorts for $350,000. So for all of those of us who can't afford $350,000, I'm more than happy to make recreations of it. And the thing is, I've seen dozens and dozens and dozens of recreations of it by somebody else other than me. And it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't take away from the history of the art. I don't even know it's happening. So where's the affront?
Right. Here's the thing, Joe, is, hold on one second, Louis. Here's the thing is, when I had first started, Joe, like, I didn't even know that you were supposed to put after the artist when I did homage covers. And when I first started, I was drawing at a hospital working overnights. Okay. I wasn't even on the con scene yet. And I would just sit there and I'd take these sketch covers, like these blank covers that you could get from the comic shop back then. And it was like this new thing. I mean, everybody does it now. But back then I would just, draw a sketch cover every night. And, I would just try to imitate or copy another artist because I had no idea what I was doing. And that's kind of how, I wanted to start. And I didn't know that you were supposed to put after, for some of these pieces. I didn't know that for about 2-3 months. People actually started buying these pieces. Some of them got out on the market. Now I go to eBay and I can find like 2 of them that have, these pieces that say Mark May art, but it doesn't have after the artist. And I'm just like, God, I just wish you would just send me the piece and I'll mail it back to you. Just let me write after the artist on it. You know what I mean? Just because it kind of hurts a little bit to think of it like that. But, with you, Joe, what you're talking about is what every great artist has kind of done. They've emulated other artists. To tell you the truth, if I could draw more like Bernie Wrightson, I'd do it every day of the week. You know what I mean? It's just Frank Frazetta, like you were talking about, is one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of last century for sure. You know what I mean? And you sit here and you think about him and all the great art that he's accomplished. And does anybody ever mention anything like what you just mentioned? I mean, really, besides the people that know, in this, like me and you, artist wise, like they're never gonna like come up with like, oh, this is why this guy sucks. Like your career speaks for itself. You know what I mean? So the legacy, if it means everything, then your legacy will be determined by that. It's not going to be determined by an article that somebody like writes on Bleeding Cool. You know what I mean?
Well, thank you, but but there are people like, for instance, Alex Toth, who genius, artist. But you never read anything about Toth without but by the way, he was a really cranky guy. It's like Alex Toth was like bipolar, and sometimes he had his craziness, and he was a very difficult person to work with. It goes hand in hand with the bio and the obit, but at least the first thing anybody pays attention to is Alex Toth was a great artist. And by the way, as far as Bernie goes, I knew Bernie. Bernie was a very sweet guy. He invited me to his house for Halloween one year, which is sort of like going to the Pope's for Christmas.
Yeah.
And he asked me, what costume am I going to wear? And I said, I'm not going to wear a costume. So Jim Starlin was nice enough to drive me there because I was upstate New York when I lived in New York City. And when we got to Bernie's place, there was this big tree with a big branch, and thrown over the branch was a hanging noose with my name across it. Right?
Oh, man, that is awesome. God, that is awesome.
And now I saw Bernie at a convention, and nobody was lined up for his autograph, and I was horrified. I mean, this is Bernie Wrightson. And I walked up to him and I said, you are one of the all-time great comic book artists, and this is ridiculous. And he said, yeah, but Frazetta just died and he's one of the all-time greats. And I went, yeah, that's true. And so are you, and Bernie's God, when you look at his earliest work, is Frank Frazetta, with some Graham Ingalls thrown in. Mm-hmm. And then like any real superior artist, he evolved into who he became. But yeah, we all purposely emulate, we all purposely steal, we all find a figure that we love and put it into our job that we always wanted to. There's the print by what's his name? Rembrandt copied Da Vinci's Last Supper, and then years later, there's a figure where Judas is sort of sitting with his arm perpendicular like this, and you will find that figure like 4 or 5 times in Rembrandt's work. He just loved it so much that he just kept moving it from picture to picture.
He took the reference.
He took the reference. It's like if Mount Everest can steal a piece of artwork, I can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked for Wally Wood, and
wow.
I worked on the last 2 Sally Forth and Cannon Sundays for Woody, who was also, by the way, a very, very sweet guy. And so what Woody would do is he'd hand me a sheet of paper and would have these panels pasted on it, like a Toth head, a Frazetta head, a Hal Foster head. Go trace that one here, trace this one here.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'd Wally Wood it, But his thing was, if Hal Foster drew the greatest trees ever, let's start with those. And if Hal Foster did the greatest chainmail ever, let me emulate that.
Right.
And he still became Wally Wood, one of the all-time greats.
He is one of the all-time greatest. Even to this day, I've got a couple books of his in my collection that I'll actually pull out artwork-wise just to look at it every now and then for influence. Did I ever tell you the story about Lewis? I told you about when I met Bernie Wrightson, right? When I had to go out to Salt Lake City, his last convention. Did I tell you about that?
You were on with Jamie and I, and on the Angry Geeks, and you told us the story. You told us about how you cried all the way to the convention in the snow.
So, Joe, I drove 18 hours overnight. They had closed I-25 from Colorado and I-70 to get out of the state. You actually couldn't leave, and they took my plane ticket and basically said you can't leave there either. So I was getting to this convention. There was no way in hell I was missing this convention. Okay, like I had a table. But I wasn't, I mean, you can ask other people. I wasn't at it too much. I was spying on Bernie the whole time.
Right.
Also, the convention I met, Steve Rude came up to the table and taught me how to use colored pencils, which I thought was really cool. But, man, I mean, I almost died 8 times getting there, and there were cars all over the side of the road. Like, I shouldn't have made it in my car, period. Like, I was in first gear the whole time going 5 miles an hour. And I finally got there, and I met him at the convention. He was the nicest guy I'd ever met, period, in the con scene, ever. I bought a couple prints. I bought an original page because I knew it was the only time I was ever going to get to see him. And I just, man, like, when you meet the guys that are like your biggest mentors, as far as, and they don't even know it, like, you've just been sitting here reading their artwork forever. You know what I mean? And you consider them to be a teacher in a way because you've been like hatching or drawing the way you see like they do it, and you try to learn it. You know, like you're talking about, you want to emulate it early in your life and your art, and become who you're going to be. But you want to take all these other styles from other artists if you can absorb it and learn it. It's just like mixed martial arts. If you can learn another weapon to put into your repertoire, that's what you need. That's what you're going to do, man. That's the only way to become a better artist, really, is learning from other better artists.
Yeah, well, of course, unless you were an out and out imitator, like you just want to be like there's guys out there who do a credible job of being John Buscema, right? Nobody's as good as John, but they do a credible job on it. But unless you really want to stick with one style, look at Bill Sienkiewicz, Neil Adams-ish, for sure, till he went other places and evolved. Craig Russell, very typical comic booky looking guy till he became Craig Russell. Bernie was kind of a combination of Frank Frazetta and Graham Ingalls with a little other stuff thrown in. And then he eventually got more into the Franklin Booth world and the etchings and all that sort of stuff. And he was very much his own man. But I mean, when I teach people, which I do Skype lessons for people on inking and drawing and whatever, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Okay. If you want to know how to paint flowers, go look at the greatest flower painter ever and get the lessons off of it. I mean, I'm not saying imitate. If you want to ink water, Hal Foster did great water. If you want to ink, superhero muscles, Neil Adams, Garcia Lopez, John Buscema, they show you how to stylize all that stuff and turn it into things. And then you take from it what you will, and you reject it and you add to it and you evolve. And it's like, look at Joe Kubert's kids. They were very much Joe Kubert Jr., literally. And then they started to get all kinds of other influences. And now they're not that much like Kubert any longer. But, they sure came from a genetically great background to start with.
They absolutely did. And I tried to get into the Kubert school, actually, at one time. Do you know that, Joe? I love the idea of a school where you can actually go learn from these guys. And I never had the money. The only way I've actually learned is on the con scene from other artists. I've been pretty lucky as far as that goes, because you reach out to some people, and a lot of people are nice enough to message you back, give you critiques, stuff like that. Which is, I thought it was amazing when you reached out to me a couple weeks ago, Joe, and asked for a critique on one of your pieces, because I'm going to be truthful with you, but I also had no idea what to say because you're just so far ahead of me as far as everything that which is another question I was going to ask you. When did you start getting into painting the way you're doing now with the gouache stuff? I mean, I want to reveal your cover right now so I can show everybody the cover. Is that okay? And then we can talk about this. Let's see.
Show. Go right ahead.
Check it out, guys.
Beautiful.
Guys, here it is right here. This is Joe's cover for Hellpug and Velocicock, which launches tomorrow. Please check it out. Look how beautiful this cover is, first off. I mean, it blows me away. You don't see traditional art like this. You just don't. Like, it's so hard to get a painting like this as traditional, like, art for a cover. And I mean, you just blew it away in like less than a day. Like,
well, thanks.
It's amazing to watch. I'm sorry. This is me fanboying as hard as I can right now, even though I'm the publisher of this comic.
Jack Kirby is an undeniably, the greatest comic artist ever lived. I mean, he invented everything, right? But and certainly Kirby will take your breath away. But when I look at Joe Kubert and Tarzan fighting a gorilla with the hair flying, or Enemy Ace with the furry collar and all that stuff, it takes my breath away. So when I met Kubert, I said, look, I'm just going to say it. I know there's no place to go, but like, you're the best, And he said, thank you. And what else are we going to say? No, really, you're really the best. It's like he got the feeling across, right? But 2 stories about teachers and critiques is there was a great illustrator named Tom Lovell, who was like the last of the great illustrators. I think he died in his earlier mid-90s in a car accident. And I called him up to just tell him he was great. I went, I love your work, and I have your books, and can I mail them for you to sign them? And he said, sure. And I said, well, you said you didn't learn much in art school. How's that possible? And he said, okay, let me ask you a question. How do you make a color neutralized? And I went, uh-oh, this could go really bad. This is Tom Lovell, uh-oh. And I went, well, you put in its complement, or you put in a little bit of black. He said, right. And we didn't learn that in art school. I went, really? What the hell kind of art school did you go to? And the other one was, there was an artist named Everett Raymond Kinsler who did Zorro before Toth and did Hawkman in the 40s. He was like 16 years old. And he was the protege of James Montgomery Flagg, the guy who did the Uncle Sam Wants You poster. And I was over at his studio, and he said, what do you think of that painting? And I went, uh-oh, this could go really bad. And I said, I think the floor's a little too busy. He went, yeah, that's what I thought. And I went, oh, thank God I came with the right answer. So it's very nice when your teachers actually ask your opinion. And when I'm on Facebook and I post my stuff, there's several of my teachers who have liked my stuff, and I hope they're not just being nice, but they think that I did good. So that's a nice thing.
Yeah, that feeling as an artist, I don't know a better way to explain this, guys. When a fan tells you how awesome your work is, it feels amazing. It does. It's an incredible feeling. There's no feeling like it besides one, and that's when your teacher tells you you did amazing. That is undeniably the greatest feeling in the entire world. I am right there with you, Mr.
Well,
Rubinstein.
Unless it's your wife, who is not easily impressed.
Dude, you should meet my future wife. She's not impressed at all about anything that I do. She's right. Like, oh, you draw stuff? You think you're getting famous because you draw stuff and put out comics? Bullshit. I don't care. Go mow the lawn.
I know a good painter who gave his girlfriend a paint portrait of her, and she kind of rolled it up and stuck it on a shelf or something. But I had an experience that I'm not sure ever happened before or will happen again. I was studying with a very fine artist named Nathan Folks, who has 2 books out and a website, FAWFOLKES, Folks. Nathan's about 10 years younger than me, and he's a very accomplished landscape painter. And I took a class with him, and I showed him my work, and he looked at it. And this was work that was published in the Society of Illustrators annual when I was 31 years old. And he looked at it and he went, I think I studied this when I was a student. Wow. So how often does that juxtaposition happen?
So is it, Mark, let me ask you a question. Is it intimidating? All right. Is it intimidating when someone, a legend like Joe or a teacher, comes up to you and says, critique this? And then, Joe, part 2 to this question, they say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. If someone does a cover swipe of one of your pieces and they come up to you and say, I did this swipe from your work, could you please critique it? How do you feel once you look at it? I mean, are you harsh and say, well, you could have changed this, you could have did this, or are you or like wow, this guy really, or this kid did really, a good job, but I'll be nice to him. Are you honest, or are you, depending on the age or situation?
Right. Mark, do you want to go first? Since you
actually, Joe, I want you to go first, and then Lewis ask me the question again, because after I was thinking about that was an amazing question to Joe, so I want to hear that.
Right. It's what I am is honest. I'm not harsh and I'm not nice. I'm honest. Now, honesty without tact is a weapon. You know, it's like, you stink. I mean, or let me talk to you about what might be better, what might be worse, how you can accomplish what you're trying to do. And I'm a good teacher because I've had bad teachers and I know what not to do and what they did to me. I've had some great teachers, but I've had some jerks too. And you start with what's positive, what's right, what worked. The fact that you even tried to do it, the fact that you even put yourself out to do the artwork is a beginning. And then I might say, you know, this could have been handled more this way. You might have thought about that more. You might go look over at this artist for what he did and how you might get from it. And see, to answer Mark's question earlier, I started at the Art Students League when I was 11 years old, which is life drawing classes. And then when I was 13, I started to work at Continuity Associates. And when I was 15, I was Dick Giordano's main assistant, but I sort of assisted all the other people like Russ Heath and Jack Abel and some Klaus Janson, some Bob McLeod. And then when I was 17, I started to freelance. All right. So while all that was going on, I was also studying with my high school painting teacher, a guy named Max Ginsberg and another guy named Erwin Greenberg. And I wanted to paint. Sure, I wanted to be a comic book artist. Sure, I wanted to be the greatest I could be at it, or the best I could be at it. But I also wanted to paint because to me, that was the height of picture making, of Rembrandt, of Velázquez, Titian, whatever. So I've always been taking drawing classes. I've always been taking painting classes. I just didn't do much with it or publicized it much for decades. But then, Facebook and all those places gave me a venue to work on them. And my students tell me that I'm one of the best teachers they ever had because I know geniuses. There's a friend of mine named Steve Assel, Assael. If you look up his work, Steve's as good a painter as ever lived. I'll match him against the Renaissance. And Steve's a genius. I'm one brick and another brick and another brick, and you got a wall, and then you got another wall, and eventually you got a ceiling, And so I understand the frustration it takes. So I can turn to my students and go, I get it. I was there. I know why you're feeling this way. Let me tell you how I got out of it. And maybe you can get out of it too. So, the fact that somebody, it's very exposing to show somebody your work.
It really is.
What do you think? Oh, you suck. That could happen. Or I mean, there's this awful human being I used to work for who looked at a guy's portfolio at DC Comics and he said, "You stink, you'll never be any good." And as the guy left wanting to kill himself, he was in the elevator and this guy made a point of going to the elevator and says, "I mean it," right? That artist, that beaten up child went on to become an art director in animation. And he met that guy years later and said, "You told me I would never be any good." And the guy said, "Oh, I don't remember." Which probably means he said it to everybody, And so, you know what? You don't motivate anybody by saying, "You stink, prove me wrong."
Right.
You motivate people by saying, "I see you can do this. Let's get there." So you want to build a person up, not pull them down, which is why I was alluding to a bad teacher of mine who used to let me know I really wasn't that good. And when are you going to get better? And so he like beat me up till I left the class. So.
Jesus. That's horrible, man. Do you know who the first person that I actually ever gave a portfolio review from or got a portfolio review from?
Who's that?
It was Neil Adams.
I'm sorry.
So here's the thing. I've gone on to do 2 more, and every time a little bit helps a little bit more, you know what I mean? But you got to understand that first year I had just first started, I had been drawing 3 months of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember, bringing the folder up, watching the guy in front of me cry and walk off right beforehand. And I was just like, oh shit, what's going to happen here? You know what I mean? But it helped. He lit a fire under my ass that has never been relinquished. And I love that guy for it.
But Neil had a guy who beat him up, and Neil went off and got better and brought his stuff back. I think it was Bob Fujitaki, or Fuji, whatever his name was. And then Neil got work. So whether it's his personality or the experience, he goes, oh, let me beat this guy up. And if he's any good, he'll come back. He says, well, I'd rather not beat anybody up. I'd rather just say, this is like I look at my work over the years and I see I was getting somewhere in this particular art, but I got frustrated and I got rid of it and took another route and another route and another route. And if I'd only said, wait, maybe this one has potential, if I could have been guided to get past the plateau, I might have been better sooner. So I just don't believe in the, beat you up school. I had a student in my life drawing class. He was an art director at Time Magazine. And he said, I went to RISD, which is the Rhode Island School of Design, or whatever the hell it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And after my first class with him, he said, I just got more from you than I did of 3 years of RISD. And it's like, that's very nice to hear, because that's why we're here, to try and, I understand the frustration of wanting to be better. Mm-hmm. It's painful.
That's
the
really
best you could do, and
that really resonated with me when you said it just a second ago, because that's how I felt. Is, if there are times where I was looking at people and they were judging it, but if they would have just told me what to do, I could have been better. You know what I mean? Earlier, like what you just said. And sometimes I still feel that sometimes, like the things that I'm just learning right now, I could have known those like 4 years ago. You know what I mean? So I know exactly what you're talking about.
And why didn't they tell me? And why, all I can say is, I know what it's like to not be able to do it. And I tried, I'm an actor too, sort of. And when I'm in acting class and you're doing a scene and the teacher says, okay, does that make you feel angry or pissed or furious or rageful? And so she's trying to find all these different words that make sense to you, the one that's going to get you there, So as an art teacher, I'm trying to give you all these possible scenarios of how you can go there and which one works for you, And so and then now the thing is with art teachers is you tell a student something 25 times and then one day they go, hey, how come you never told me that before? Well, I told you 25 times, but you weren't ready to hear it, and then you did. But it's nice if the person starts pounding it in your head early.
That's the same thing about being a parent of a teenager.
Okay.
Yeah, you tell the person 25 times, and finally it's like, hey, you never told. Yes, I told you 25 times. It's the same thing. So I can relate.
Their lobes closed yet. So.
Yeah, that's true. True. I can relate.
Right.
I can relate.
But, I look at my old stuff and I go, why didn't they tell me about that? I see it now. Why didn't and maybe people feel like it's none of my business, or he's doing it the way he wants, or whatever it is. But throughout my career, people and my paintings and drawings, people have said, it's fine. You just it's great, and I got awards and I got into shows and all that sort of stuff. It's like, no, it's not. It's not what I want to do. I have to keep searching, and you find. And if I buy lots of art books, and if I find instructional art books, and if I find one fact in it I didn't know, one color combination I never thought of, it's worth the 25, 30, $50 because that's worth it. It's going to help me the rest of my life.
Just like if you're playing an RPG game, Joe, for artists, and you go out there and you hit the, buy level up. And that's what you're doing, is every little one that you learn is a level up for you. I get it. I do the same thing. That's awesome.
It's, and there are artists out there who are happier than we are because they'll go, I'm fine. I'm good. This is where I'm sticking. I don't need to keep exploring things, And then there's the other ones who are in agony who keep exploring stuff. The guy I mentioned earlier, Everett Raymond Kinster, his main protege is a guy named Shane McNeil. And Shane wants, and he's very, very accomplished portrait painter, society portrait painter. And he said, we're on a road to we don't know where. And he's right, because I think of it as trying to walk towards the horizon, and you never get there.
Yes.
You're just doing your best. You're trying a new hop, step, and a jump, and you never get to the horizon. But, you know, maybe you're a little happier now trying to get to the horizon.
You know, hearing you say that, I think about it all the time. I'm like, there's not enough time in the day for us to learn as much as we can learn and practice as hard as we can to get to where we want to be as an artist before we die. And that's what we think about all the time is this is it. Like, I want to be the best I can possibly be and leave a legacy. But at the same time, I want to live forever because I'm never going to get to where I want to be as an artist.
Well, here's the thing I tell my students, especially if there's somebody who's really brand new. I'll say, congratulations. You've just started a journey that will occupy you the rest of your life. You will never get bored. That's the good news. The bad news is you will never be as good as you want to be.
Yeah.
Now, here's the other good news. But you could be much better than you ever thought you could be. So if 20-year-old me, 16-year-old me had been presented with my work and said, okay, all you have to be this good is to do a pact with the devil. I go, you got it. Okay, fine. Because I'll never be that good. And luckily nobody gave me that deal. And now that I'm this good, it's like, it's not enough. I need more. I got to get better. This is not everything I want to do in life, but I never thought I'd be this good. So that's the trade-off of being an artist or a writer or a musician or an actor. Or a parent. I don't know. Maybe you're the best parent you ever could be, and you wish you were a better parent now. But you learned so much over the 16 years you've been teaching this kid that you're better at it ever. But still, new problems are presented to you, and you go, "What do I do now?"
Yeah.
Well,
agreed.
Let me ask you something, Joe. So we've gone over a little bit. It's 8:05 right now. You still feel good talking right now, or you want to get off here? How you feeling?
I mean, don't cut it right off, but give me a question or two more, and then I can go back to work.
All right, sounds good. Man, first off, it's been great talking to you tonight, because I don't think me and you have actually had a chance to have a one-on-one conversation in like 3-4 years. And the last time we talked was the first time we talked in person, and I was just a nervous wreck. You know what I mean? I ended up buying a print from you, or actually not buying a print from you. I got a print from you that you told me was okay if I paid you back for it later, which this is the only kind of experience I've ever had with an artist like this before. I just remember I hadn't made enough money at the show, but I loved your print so much and I wanted it. You told me to take it and pay you back later, which I did, but it took a year.
Did it really? Okay.
Yeah, it took me a year, and I finally got back to you and paid it. And I'll never forget, like that, from that moment then to this moment now, you've been incredible to me. Like, you did a card for the set, you've done a cover, which, you know, I have the original art for, which I'm going to cherish forever and put like right next to my bed as I wake up every day to see it. You understand what I'm saying? You're helping me put out the product that I'm trying to do with these comic books.
Just don't get into bed and cuddle with it. That's all I'm asking.
No promises. Okay. No promises. It's okay. So nice. What are you doing?
You know, before comic book collectors got all into this grading and slabbing shit, I'm pretty sure they used to roll them for sexual gratification. But you know,
is that why it's got the rolls in them? I always wondered why it had the roll marks in the comic books.
You know, all that stuff. It's, you know, it's kind of I mean, I understand it's money, I understand it's collecting, I understand all that stuff, but it's like comic books were fun and they were for kids, and you collected them and you put them in a corner and you read them and you folded them backwards, and you know, and now it's like you know.
Yeah. Have you seen the market lately? They're worth a fortune on a lot of your books.
Yeah, I know.
Joe,
I know.
Joe, I never did that to my comics growing up. Honestly, I still have. I swear, I still have my Migos from when I was a kid. I still have where I am, we call it the Geek Lair. This is a green screen, but I mean, behind me is all my toys. When my wife and I bought our house, we had to buy one with a 5th bedroom for my toys and comics. And
well, your wife is a saint.
Oh my God, you have no idea. She just, I mean, it's past her bedtime too. She just walked behind the cameras and the lights and everything to go to bed. And I mean, I have a spinner rack right in front of me, and a couple of your books are on the spinner rack. So I never done that with my books, never rolled them up.
Okay.
But I did always, I would lay, like, if a splash page was there, I would lay them out and draw what I seen on the splash page. But to me, I'm not a sports guy unless it was pro wrestling, because that it mimicked comic books.
Right, sure.
To me, comics, superheroes were my life, always. So that was always sacred to me, and I always treated them that way. And it was like, no, don't touch that. It's it's mine. Action figures on the wall, playing with amigos. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for the joy my entire life of putting adventures in my head and help making me want to read. Being a kid at 4 years old, picking up a comic book and being like, I need to know what these people are saying. So that's made me want to read, of looking at what you people, in the industry were putting these words to. So first I want to say thank you for that. And I think when you were on my show, I said thank you for that. If now that I'm done slobbering all of you, I do have one final question for you. If you had a choice to, I know I said earlier, I want to know where you're going in the future. But if you had a chance to revisit some of your work, because you were saying earlier, oh, I wish I could have did this better. If you had a chance to revisit something, just one issue, not an entire series, just one issue, or maybe even one cover that you wanted to, I wish I could redo this one, what would it be?
Good question.
Well, when Frank Miller, who was, I think Frank's and I are the same age, when Frank was a starving 18-year-old kid who I used to buy lunch for occasionally, wound up doing the Wolverine miniseries. He was doing Daredevil at the same time, and I thought the stuff was perfection. And I thought Klaus Janson, who was also a protege of Dick Giordano's, was doing the best job on Frank's work. So when I did Wolverine, Frank was giving Klaus full pencils, and he was giving me layouts, which means they were a lot shakier, a lot less details, more of my contribution. So when I was done with it, I didn't care for it at all, because it didn't look like Daredevil. But it didn't start out looking like Daredevil, and it wasn't supposed to be Daredevil. So I didn't like it much, and I was rather embarrassed by it for the next 25 years. So when people would say something nice to me about it, I would do the polite thing, thank you, but I wouldn't correct them and go, it could have been better. Right. So 25 years later, I looked at it without the preconceived notion of what it should look like, and I thought it wasn't bad. I thought there were good aspects to it. I just wonder, if I were presented with it today, what I would do differently, and would I like it any better? I don't know. If you look at my website on Facebook, there's a before and after gallery, and there's a Xerox of the splash, which is a close-up of Wolverine's face, and it's got a lot of lines on it. And I edited most of those lines out and made it a little bit more traditional looking comic book. I suspect what Frank was doing was he was practicing his Ronin style, but he didn't tell me that. And if he'd handed me the Ronin book and said, could you make it look more like this, I would have, but I didn't. So I'm just curious, if I actually had the Xerox's back of the pages, how differently I would do it today. But when I was doing Captain America with Byrne, he drew 5 or 6 pages of the next issue before they quit the book. And I, about a year ago, actually inked those pages about 35 years later. And I inked them in that style of the time. So if anybody wants to see what the Byrne Rubinstein Captain America that never happened would have looked like, also go to like MB Artists or my website on Facebook, and you can find them. And, you know, I think, by the way, I think those things look good. I'm just wondering if I inked them today, if they would look any different. Because John was a tighter penciler in those days, and he was a little bit more into rendering than his more contemporary style.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Joe, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, man, I don't want to keep you too long, because the truth is I could probably keep you for the next 3 hours talking to you about this stuff. Me and you are both going to be guests at Colorado Springs Comic-Con. So I'll be able to talk to you a lot more, and we can hang out then. I'd love to have you back on the show sometime, because, I mean, we could pick your brain again.
Right. Maybe
sure.
when one of those projects come out, like the Liberty Brigade or Power Comics, I can come.
I'd be totally down. That way we could help promote your book.
Right.
Does that sound good?
Sure.
And here's the thing, guys. I'm going to show you one more time. This is Joe's cover. He is the man for helping me out. This is fantastic. Take a look at that.
I have to say, I sent Bill Sienkiewicz a scan of it for any advice. And first time he called me up to talk about it, to tell me how much he liked it. So that was very pleasing, because, of course,
wow,
Bill is such a good artist that it's nice to think he did it.
Man, I met him once in Kansas City. He was very nice. I tried to make an art trade with him, not knowing too much who he was. I was just brand new in the art industry, and he's just kind of looking at me like, "Got any money to go with that art trade?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know." And right. He's one of the most incredible artists I've ever seen. I've got a little original card of the Shadow that I saw him paint.
You know, Bill and I are like a month or two difference in age too, so it's interesting. Frank, Bill, and I are all about the same age, and
I was going to show you my 1 through 4 of my Wolverines, but I forgot to pull them out tonight.
Right. I've seen it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I better go paint on Star Wars now.
Mm-hmm. All right, Joe. Nice seeing you again.
Thank you so much, my friend. Have a great night, and God, we'll see you again soon, guys. That was Joe Rubinstein, the most incredible artist ever to come on this show.
So far,
there's only been 2 so far. There's been me and him. So, just saying. Guys, this is how we're going to close out the show tonight. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we got going on tomorrow. Lewis, if you feel like it, my friend, you can join us at any time. We are launching at 4:20 Mountain Time, which is 6:20 your time, 5:20 Central, and 3:20 on the West Coast. So if you guys are over there on the West Coast, you guys will be 3:20. That's right, 4:20 Mountain Time, 4/20/21 date, Tuesday. So we are launching Hellpug and Velocicock, my friends. Hellpug and Velocicock. So if you haven't seen it yet, please check it out. Here are some of the covers I'm going to show you right now. I am super proud of these. Let's see. Check it out. Just kidding about showing you the covers. We're going to show you tomorrow night. So, what we are going to leave you with tonight is my pitch for everything. Please join us tomorrow night, guys. Hellpug and Velocicock. Hellpug is the next story in the Hellbringer saga. If you haven't checked out the Hellbringer saga yet, we started with Hellbringer 0 in the Art of Mark May Volume 1. Then came Hellbringers the Sacred Heart with Mr. Chad Harden. Then came Jengar and Shred #1 on Kickstarter 2 months ago. Then Dawn of the Devil last month. How am I doing this? How am I taking a Kickstarter and doing it every month? How? I'll tell you how. Because I love this job. I love writing. We've got a great team. I can do anything I can possibly want to do with the team that I have around me. I love you guys. We are going to make a great comic book. I cannot wait for you to see it. It's going to be hilarious. It's about my dog. He's a pug. And then don't forget this little guy right here. He's just hanging out.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me.
Oh yeah, we are talking about Liz. Mr. Perry. Guys, thank you for tuning in for the first episode of the Mayhem Show with Mark May and my co-host, Mr. Lewis Perry, the man himself. I got to tell you guys, it's been a lot of fun. We've had a great time. I mean, how much more fun can we possibly have tonight? I'm not sure too much. There's a quesadilla downstairs. I'm going to eat it.
And I'm going to bed.
All right.
See you guys later.
Guys. I want to show you the badass ending to the show. Wait till you see this. Oh, yeah. You guys are going to love this. Wait till you see this. All right, guys, I'm coming back because that was awesome, right? Who doesn't want to see it again? Let's see it one more time before we go to bed, huh? First show, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you liked it. Lewis is awesome. Joe Rubinstein is awesome. We're going to be doing this a lot more tomorrow night. We've got the Kickstarter on. And then the day after, we're going to have Raymond Leonard in the house on Wednesday. Tom Hutchinson in the house on Thursday. And Mike DeBuffalo in the house on Friday. And you might even see my kid taking care of that. It's going to be her birthday on Saturday. So, 7 years old. I'm going to leave you with this. You guys have a great night.